On today's episode of the Old Radio Shop, we have this Arvin 42R29 clock radio. This one is mine. It is probably from 1962, I believe is what I read. This was given to me by friends of the family a long time ago when I was in high school. Now, this was the 80s when I was in high school. So, I used to use this thing all the time. Set in a window ledge by the bed. Would listen to it overnight, constantly, almost every night. So I put some good use to this thing. Never changed a tube in it. So we're going to put this on the bench and get her going, because I want to see this thing going again. I need to clean it up, do some cleaning on it, but we're going to replace some components on it because I haven't used it in years, and I know that is going to be dead. And that is about all I'm going to change out on it. I'm going to try to clean up the board, but the interlock had been defeated a long time ago with a cord there. I do have a cheater cord that can actually go on there, but I may just do the exact same thing. It's clip a cord on. Make it unsafe for me to use. But it's mine. I can do with it what I want. But that's it. I'm going to oil up the clock. It's a West Clocks movement. Right there you can see West Clocks movement. It's a neat little set. I really enjoyed it. AM, FM. I listened to it AM mostly. I could DX the heck out of things with this. Used to listen to Dallas from Houston and all kinds of other things.
someone there, Mr. Marlowe?
No. Well, not anymore, there isn't.
And there probably wasn't. I got me a clumsy little cat, Marlowe, always falling over.
Episode, you'll learn to apply biblical principles to everyday life. Wherever you get your podcast.
So anyway, there's the Arvin running after replacing the capacitors. I have to work on the clock, so we're going to work on the clock here for a bit and see if we can get the clock running. The clock used to run because I used to turn it on sleep timer, and we're going to get the clock running, and we're going to have to loop it up and figure out why it's hung, because it is hung because it won't set. So it's pretty much hung in here. So we're going to work on the clock and get this puppy put back together after we get the clock going. So this clock mechanism here will have to be oiled, and I'll have to pull the mechanism from the rotor. The rotor magnet is working, but the mechanism inside has froze up, so I'm going to have to use the trick of taking it off, heating it up, oiling the stem here, and then letting it cool back down so it'll suck the oil back in. But I'll have to get it separated. I believe it will separate from the rotor coil here, so we'll see. I checked that the magnet was working, and it is, so we'll go from here. So while I was working on this clock radio, I took the rotor out, doing a heat it up, let it suck oil in, heat it up, let it suck oil in. Well, what happened was the plastic is real brittle that the coil wires were hooked to, so I had to get in there and resolder a little bitty piece of coil wire to a little bitty piece of coil wire, and then I've got it hooked back up to where it originally hooked up. I had tried to hot glue it on. I'd hot glued the other part where the post that it had soldered to was there. It had snapped off the coil because the plastic had become brittle. So I'd hot glued one side, it had stayed, and I hadn't got this one good, and it didn't. But I've got it repaired now, and I'll get it cleaned up neater than this, but this is for me to test it here on the bench after this cools down and sucks some more oil in. On my Arvin clock radio, the rotor would not turn, so the traditional heat it up, let oil suck in, heat it up, let oil suck in around the pinion gear did not work. So I ended up doing something I've never done with a rotor before, which is opening it up. And I opened it up, pull it out, and it was pretty much stuck stiff. So I cleaned it out with some electrical contact cleaner, and then I have re-lubed it lightly, and I put it back in the motor over here, and it works. So I'm going to crimp it back down, because if I don't crimp it, it won't fit back in the motor housing into the clock. So I was able to resuscitate it by opening it, and that's the first time I've ever done that with one of these rotors. Usually you can heat it up, let it suck in oil, heat it up, let it suck in oil. But this is a Westclox motor, and they're a little bit different from the Telcron motor rotors. But it does work after me taking it apart and cleaning it out and putting it back together. Alright, we're back on this Arvin clock radio. I have got the motor put back together and the coil put back together. Got it mated with the rotor and the coil back together. When I was putting this back together, unfortunately, you see this, well, I'm finding it, this right here, that was part of the plastic that was on the bobbin for the coil, and there was another one for the other side, and they both broke off, taking the coil wires with them. So I had to repair, no, I'm going to have to clean this up some, the coil wires, so that I had a good coil again. And I had to dig in there, and it's 34 size wire was on the coil, and I had to repair it with size 34 wire so I could splice it to it. Then I hot glued it down to the motor coil holder so that it wouldn't break off again. And now we have working clock. And there you have it on this Arvin clock radio. The clock rotor is back working. And the clock is back working. The clock is back in order. And as I said, I had to pry the rotor open, clean it out, and re-lubricate it so that it would run. It had stiffened up because I've probably not used this radio in about 25 years. And so it had stiffened up. And so there you go. We're going to get it all buttoned up back together. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do with the cord, because this had a removable cord, but somebody had also soldered a cord on there, and that's probably what I'm going to do, is just solder a cord onto the pins and go from there. While it's not original, it will work, and that's the way it was the whole time I've had it and used it. So we'll get it put back together, get the nods back on, but I just wanted to show you that the clock is now working after surgery on the rotor and surgery on the coil wires.
Anti-energy policies of this administration. You have to be sucked.
820 WBAP. So we're talking term limits. Yes or no? What are your thoughts? What do you believe? So let me give you a quick history on Ron Huber and I. So many, many years ago, I was doing country radio in California. You guys all know I was in the Bay Area doing country radio. And I was backstage at a...
He lost 30,000. 30,000. We had Christina in, and she was talking about the average.
I'm Dan Hort. Again, the final score, Cincinnati 103, Miami 76. Thanks so much for listening, and good night from Fifth Third Arena.
Drive Toyotas at an EPA estimating.
We'll know the dessert, not an afterthought. Bakery is now taking orders for Christmas until December 16th. Visit online at oakmontbakery.com or stop in to check out this charming holiday wonderland. Merry Christmas, and remember, at Oakmont Bakery, we believe in delicious memories.
All the news you need for your day and the sports, music, and podcasts you love are all on the free Odyssey app. Download now.
From Wilkinsburg to Washington and all over Pittsburgh, this is the trusted source for news. 100.1 FM and AM 1020, KDKA.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about downtown Pittsburgh during its heyday, and I've been trying to engage my...
So this is one of the things I loved about this Arvin radio when I was in high school, is it was a great AM DX radio, and I am picking up no telling how much stuff from my basement here. That was Pittsburgh. You heard Cincinnati, all kinds of things. This is a great performing AM radio, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get it running again. I got the clock running again. I love the fact that I can set it for an hour and it kicks out. It has a timer that'll count down and shut your radio off after an hour, so you're not running it all night if you don't want to. This is Arvin 42R29, great performing AM radio.
Going up the escalators. I love pennies, and I'm up going... Three ball is up. In and out. Rebound, Christian.
That's good. Yeah, the thing, too, is...
This would come in. I was
always there.
Because there's other times I cannot pick up some of these stations on other radios I have fixed down here in the basement. It just has a really good AM reception on it. FM works well too. So that's it for the Arvin 42R29. That is mine, and I'm going to put it back to use beside the bed now that I've got it going again after 30 years of it sitting on the shelf. So it's good for another. We'll see you next time here on the Radio Shop.